Another legislative session has come and gone here in Washington. Top of mind for lawmakers this go round, the state's operating budget. From new taxes to fresh cuts, a lot is happening, and it's all going to impact you one way or another. So joining us here in the studio to help us understand what is happening and how it's going to impact the state, former State Senator Reuven Carlyle. Thanks for being back with us.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we talked very early on in the session about how legislators and the governor would be handling the budget deficit. Now we know. Were there any surprises in your mind?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the surprise is the size of the tax package. And they talked about a $16 billion budget deficit over the next 4 years. It ended up being about $9+ billion of that of taxes. I think there was a sense that it would be more of a 50-50 split, and it ended up being a lot more taxes than I think people expected.
Can you break down the big winners and the big losers for us?
You know, I think the big winners is organized labor. We're a heavy unionized state. They passed legislation providing unemployment benefits for striking workers, which is a big policy. We're one of the only states in the nation now.
It's huge.
Huge bill, and that was a big policy. I think gun safety advocates who passed comprehensive legislation regarding needing a permit before you can get a weapon, that was a big win. Extended producer responsibility, big policy on single-use plastics, going to really redo a lot of our recycling system. So a couple of big policy bills. Representative Liz Berry was behind two of those. Senator Marco Lias on the transportation package, actually a bipartisan transportation package. So some winners there. And some real challenges, as you can imagine. I think it was a pretty stressful session for folks.
If there was one big loser, what would that be?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I think some people would say the taxpayer.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, right.
I think others would say that progressive tax reform advocates who are pushing for comprehensive overall reform of our tax system didn't see much progress. The taxes that were done were pretty traditional business and occupation taxes.
Let's talk about the taxes, because when you look at like the gas tax and some of the others, what does it mean for the average person? How is it going to impact us?
You know, I think a lot of the cuts that we're going to see, you touched on it earlier relative to Medicaid cuts from the federal government, but a lot of healthcare cuts were made, and that's going to affect hospitals. So I think there's some healthcare issues. And as you also have covered, some of the school districts are really struggling. So how the school districts really get impacted by the overall budget. There's additional dollars going into education. How that trickles down is still a real question.
And as we know, school districts and hospitals, healthcare systems are already feeling the pressure and already struggling. That's right. So when you look at some of the program losses, what can you tell us there on a personal level? How will we be impacted?
Yeah, you know, one particular area that was really tough was foster youth. They lost out a program, Treehouse, which provides educational services for young people, foster youth. College Success Foundation, a lot of those big, deep cuts in some very popular programs. So that hurts a lot.
What do you think it means for Governor Ferguson politically? How he handled this, his first year in, his first huge budget, some big decisions that he had to make. Yeah. Where do you think he sits now politically? You
know, first session is really tough. A new governor comes in, they got to write a big budget right away. So, and I think he struggled a bit. I think it took his a little bit of time to get his footing. You know, he got a good, clean single. You know, made it to base and did okay. Got a few of his big initiatives through. $100 million for local law enforcement, additional police, which we know is an issue not just in Seattle but really statewide. So he did get some wins, but I think it took some time to get adjustment. And then, candidly, a big shock that the state Senate has become much more progressive left than the state House. It's always been for the last 40 years or so the opposite. So big changes in Olympia with changes in personalities too.
And so when you talk about the changes in personalities, what's the takeaway for you in terms of the Senate and House leadership and where they are after this session?
Yeah, I think they're really navigating the complexity of the federal government uncertainty. Everyone knows this is just a profound impact. Port of Seattle, the ports around the state, you wonder about the traffic and the trade dependence. So the uncertainty of the federal government funding, I think, has put everybody in Olympia on edge. And of course, to the public, to the real folks, city government, county government, state government, federal government, you know, it really comes down to real services for people that matter, and it's not really about what level of government provides that service. So that has made it tough, I think, on state government.
Because the uncertainty is real across so many aspects of our economy, all of it.
That's right.
Reuven Carlyle, so great to have you here to help us navigate the entire session. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.